Hello, and welcome to another edition of Uconomy. I'm Thomas Fox.
And I'm Nunzio Bruno.
And today we're going to talk about some very happy gas prices, oil,
fun
stuff.
So exciting. But
Yes.
what I'm even more excited, two things I'm excited for today.
What's that?
One, wireless in the studio, working. And number two, look at this bad Charlie right here.
Huh.
Yeah, see that? It's all for you guys.
Big
all
time.
36 of you.
Going big time. Well, you know, obviously, for those of you that do drive, the gas prices have the gas prices have been a big challenge. I've been hearing a lot about it, back and forth. You know, are we going to be wind up at $5 a gallon? Where are we going to be? So you never know. You know, there have been some arguments back and forth that this is actually a moot point for people's budgets. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that 100%. When you have a lot of things, especially in our current economy. You know, the last time we had some challenges with gas prices came to be around 2008, where there's some scurry around things. Yep. But we weren't where we are now. You know, we have underemployment, unemployment, things like that. These numbers that are rather large, and people's budgets have been changed dramatically. So when you talk about $5 now, $5 a gallon, it does get some people nervous. So today we're going to talk a little bit about that. Give you some tips also about what you can maybe do to kind of remedy that. But, you know, did you want to share some background on how we got into this or where we're at with the oil?
Yes, well, it's not really, the dollar prices are rising, so that's a positive thing for us, the purchasing power of what the dollar can buy. But mainly what's going on is in the United Arab Emirates, Iran, Iraq. There's a lot of political unrest, and that's actually having a factor on the amount of the supply of oil that can come out of those countries. Along with Syria.
Wasn't it the Strait of Hormuz that carries, what, 2/3 of the world's oil through there or something like that?
So there are other suppliers. Nigeria is a big supplier of oil. There are obviously South American countries, and the U.S. even has private stock that they usually save for really tight times, but for keeping prices from elevating to ridiculous levels. I've started to read some articles that say that they'll start to slowly use our own domestic supplies to try to keep price levels balanced.
Well, you know what was interesting too? I was watching the other day, and what they had said was that right now, even though production in the U.S. is and they're always saying drill, baby, drill, and do more, mm-hmm. that we're exporting more oil than we have in the past too, because now we tend to forget we are part of this global economy now, mm-hmm. and supply and demand is a huge issue. So even though our oil production can pick up here, if our demand stays flat, we're going to export that to other countries, such as China and India, because now supply and demand. More people are driving in China, more people are driving in India. They have larger cause for they need oil. So these are things that even if we increase, we could drill through everything, we're still going to be exporting if we maintain flat here. So that's kind of an issue too.
And it's more than just gasoline for your car. These oil prices, or the oil that's being shipped in these barrels, really goes into everything from manufacturing to even product creation. A lot of plastics are petroleum based, and that's so you have these countries. When China goes through an economic quote unquote boom, and they're buying up copper and raw materials, they're also buying up oil that's manufacturing. They're raw industrialization booms. So a lot of people are working actually making things, and that eats up a great deal of supply as well.
Absolutely. So I mean, there are just more things than petrol that come out of oil, and that changes a lot. Especially, like I said, being in that global economy and having supply and demand being what it is.
So now that you mentioned supply and demand, I gotta put my professor hat on.
Okay.
So gasoline, our gas here, what we put in our cars, is a pretty inelastic good. Okay, that means that as prices change, there'll be some modifications to our behavior, but it's not something that you can just quit cold turkey. Yeah. So much like cigarettes, alcohol, firearms, taxes can keep.
Or your Springfield Friday night.
Oop, man down. Or, Springfield Friday, wow. Between that and the phone, I'm gone, but that's okay. The idea is that we can modify our behaviors to some extent, but you can't go without it, right? And that's why tax dollars on those, what they call sin stocks or sin companies, will keep being revenue generators because, in down times, people will buy a little more alcohol. Smokers, just because there's a few extra cents on the pack, doesn't mean that they're going to necessarily stop smoking. They might curb it a little bit, but you're still going to have, those people buying those products. Same with gasoline.
And I think already people were saying California, if I'm not mistaken, I was seeing almost $6 a gallon prices already, and that's because they have very high taxation.
Yep.
on their gas, and that's why you see different gas prices in different states and whatnot. So
right now it's almost within the next week or so. I'm reading an article that says that it's going to be almost $4.25 in places like New York and Connecticut. Might be.
Yeah, and that's good. And just to give you a little example too, let's say you're a typical American. You drive roughly 12,500 miles per year. If your car gets 25 miles a gallon, that means you buy about 500 gallons of gas during the year. When gas is selling at $2.80 a gallon, you spend $1,400. $1,400 is still a fair amount of money. But now, let's say that goes up to $4.05 a gallon. You'll spend $2,025 for the same gas. So basically, for the same amount of gas, an additional $625 over the course of a year, or an extra $52 a month. And that's where it comes into with the budgets for regular people.
Yeah,
extra
absolutely.
$52 a month. That's kind of a stretch sometimes. It's kind of it can really hit the budget. So I mean, it's an important thing to really look at and be cognizant of, and really try to, figure out some ways. How can I take this? How can I use? I know it's going to be extra. How can I make that fit in my budget?
To blow that out even one step further, I came across an article from MSNBC that actually said that every penny increase per gallon in the U.S. domestically takes. Was it $1 million or $1 billion? Do you remember the email? I think it was $1 billion from the economy and puts it towards gas prices. Let me just double check.
Oh, and a complete hole.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Because everybody's got to buy gas.
Right. So a quote from Reuters puts every 1 penny increase per gallon, it means that an overall $1 billion comes out of other parts of the economy.
Wow.
Isn't that neat?
And that's just that's an incremental change.
Yep.
So I mean, we have some challenges. So what we're going to talk a little bit about is,
all
right, so we know the problem. What's the solutions? Obviously you can't just stop using gas. I mean, otherwise we'd live in Amish country.
Because what is it? Kind of good.
Because it's elastic.
Inelastic.
I know.
Okay.
It's plastic, man.
No.
It's inelastic, man.
Right.
All right. So you can't really get away from gasoline. You can do some things. I've heard some great, over the weekend I heard some great, people should just move closer to their jobs. Yeah, okay, so I'm going to sell my house to move. Yeah, some things are practical, some things are not practical.
Right.
A couple of practical things to do. Drive slower. Actually, if you stay, it's more efficient to drive between 50 and 60 miles an hour than it is between 65 miles an hour and beyond. And one of the things, the Federal Trade Commission, each 5 miles an hour you drive over 65 miles an hour is like spending an extra 20 cents per gallon of gas by having a lead foot. So
racing the red lights, stop it. Going from, if you're driving down Sumner Avenue and you're redlining your car from one red light to the next, that's burning gas.
That's probably not good. And if you're driving down Sumner, can you please turn down your stereo too? Sometimes it wakes people up.
Wow.
Wow.
It's just wow.
And does it take a lot of gas? It doesn't take a lot of gas. No. But anyway, pay better attention to the road. A lot of people, especially now with texting and everything else, all of a sudden you see the lights green and you gun it and you do what you got to do. If we just pay, and listen, it's a lot safer anyway to pay attention to our surroundings and things like that. So, pay better attention. Make sure you're doing what you need to do and being a safe driver.
Right. Let's see. Next one is avoid excessive idling. So when you're waiting for that food to be ready from your takeout window, or you're trying to pick up a friend, it's okay to turn the car off and then turn it back on instead of leaving it idle for 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah, it seems like, and these little ticky-tack things, but I mean, it's things that you can put together.
Bird's gas. Most modern cars these days don't need time, or don't need that much time to warm up. Obviously, if your car's been sitting out, overnight unstarted, and it's below freezing, you might want to give it a few minutes, but you don't need to start your cars anymore for half an hour, 45 minutes before you get in them to go to work.
Yeah, it's not a 1971 Bonneville.
Right.
It will. That took about 4 years to warm up.
Right. That thing's a tank.
It was a tank. Speaking of tanks, use your cruise control on the highway.
Yes.
I didn't realize it, but you can save an average of 7%, according to some sources, depending on your model and the usual driving style. But yeah, you find that you don't need to become the flow of traffic. Just find the flow of traffic and keep up with it and put the cruise control on. Especially, listen, we drive back and forth to Boston sometimes, and it's just practical. Just put on the cruise control. You're in a good lane, and just keep going, and you avoid some of that fluctuation. Again, saving 7%, that's not bad.
No, and not. Saying that to do the speed limit, it would be an understatement. I know everyone kind of has a tendency to, myself included, I'm guilty of that. But if I find the flow of traffic and it's a little high, I'm still going to pop that cruise control on because it's going to, it's going to be efficient.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Number 5, removing excess weight from your vehicle's trunk. I'm a notorious pack rat. If you looked in my trunk right now, you'll see rugby gear, probably gym clothes, and boxes of books that I've been carting around just because I'm too lazy to take them out of my trunk. And that weight actually slows me down and burns up more gas when I'm trying to get from one place to another.
I have depending on who you ask, the fortune or the misfortune to work with a bunch of bowlers. And I'd be honest, I was talking to one guy, he had maybe 5 or 6 undrilled balls in his trunk or whatever, and he said he took them out, and he saved an average of $20 a month just by taking out bowling balls, because they're pretty heavy, a 16-pound ball. You got a couple of those in the trunk. Listen, it's good to put them in there in the wintertime when it's snowing like it is right now.
Right.
Yeah.
Lots of snow. Chains on the tires.
But yeah, when you have to do things like that, that's important. But if you got good weather, take them out. Take as much weight as you can out of the car. Again, save a little bit on that. 2% loss in fuel economy for having excess weight in your car. So,
and one quick caveat: cars are kind of like pets. They will emulate what you do. So if you're a little inactive and you spend a lot of time on the couch, your dog, or probably cats don't really go for walks, but your dog will probably want to do the same thing. So the way you drive, if you're an aggressive driver, the way your engine is tuned over time, it'll emulate that. So even if you do these subtle changes, it might take a while for your engine, to kind of recalibrate itself to burn fuel more efficiently.
And I would like to say, if anybody has a video of you walking your cat, please email it to us, because those are pretty funny.
Or anything else that shouldn't really be walked.
Or kitten mittens.
Kitten mittens.
Kitten mittens.
Or kittens in a mug.
I have not seen that one.
Wow.
I would say without sugar, kittens probably don't taste good.
Wow.
Wow.
Okay, number 6, it's okay to drive with your windows up and the AC on. Yes. You're taking advantage of the car's natural aerodynamics. You're not creating any excess drag with the windows down. So the excess fuel that you think it takes to run the fans in modern cars these days and the coolant systems don't really eat up that much gas comparing to those from the days of yore. With a caveat, or I shouldn't say caveat. This goes to truck drivers. People that drive their trucks with the door down to the bed, that's actually less efficient. When you keep the door up, I saw this on Mythbusters, so it has to be true. It creates a pocket of air, right, in the truck bed, and so as you're driving, that pocket of air actually helps curve over and makes your truck more aerodynamic. They proved that.
Nothing wrong with that. And honestly, this is one that always threw me off, because I'm always like, no, I leave the windows down, but no, you're right. It's so much more drag on the car. It has to work harder to do 60 miles an hour, let's say, than with the windows closed. A lot more smoother. This little one, and a lot of people throw this off, you could save as much as 3% on your gas usage if you make sure your tires are fully inflated.
And that's a safety thing too.
That's a safety thing.
Be sliding around on uninflated tires.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, I have more places around the Pioneer Valley that I've gone to have free air now. It used to be 50 cents, 75 cents. A lot of places now are just as a courtesy. Free air. So hey, listen, nothing wrong with that. Make sure the tires are full. You can always get a little 99-cent tire gauge from AutoZone or something. Make sure it's up to the specs, and save yourself some money that way.
I check mine about once a week just to make sure. One of the last ones, you want to keep up with the recommended maintenance, especially oil. A lot of modern cars, if they're a little more sporty in nature, they'll eat oil just from the nature of wear and tear on the engine. So you want to make sure that you're constantly checking your oil, that you're constantly keeping all of your fluids topped off. Anything to keep your engine running like it should be will keep it running as efficient as possible.
Yeah, definitely. Make sure that you're always keeping up to date with all those, all the maintenance you have to get done and all the service visits. I mean, it can be a pain in the butt sometimes, but honestly, to keep your car running efficiently and safely, and that's obviously very important. So Nunzio, we're coming to the end of our program right now.
Yep. So
I just want to offer something, if I may.
Yeah, go for it.
If we have a guide, Cambridge Credit Counseling, it's called "Driving as If Your Budget Depends on It." It's a consumer guide to saving on fuel expenses, and if you visit www.cambridgecredit.org, go to our education session. You can download this. Just for everybody knows, Cambridge Credit is a nonprofit organization. So we're just here trying to give you some advice, and this might be something that might help you out.
So planning, that's the key thing. If you take anything away, higher oil prices means more planning.
Yep. All right. Well, listen, thank you very much for tuning in to Uconomy. We thank you. We appreciate it, and we'll see you next time.
See you next time.